So I talk to a lot of people who are looking to buy their first property. And because of how expensive real estate is, their first property is usually a condo. So in this video, I'm going to be going over the things that I most commonly hear from buyers that I believe to be mistakes, and there's 5 of them. And the first thing that I most commonly hear from buyers is they want to completely disregard buying an older condo. People have an idea that newer condos appreciate better than older condos, which can be true, but not always true, right? And the way that I like to look at it is a rising tide lifts all boats, right? So right now, if you have a newer condo at $600,000 and an older condo is $480,000, in the future, you can bet that that newer condo is not going to be $800,000 and the older condo is going to be $520,000. They typically rise in tandem, right? So it's a rising tide lifts all boats, so to speak. And to give you a good example of this, the condo that I bought in 2017 for $275K, 1983, no in-suite laundry, was less than $100,000 pre-2010, I believe. I sold a 2-bed, 1-bath, no in-suite laundry 1970s building in North Van for $750,000 in spring of 2023. Now, if older condos did not appreciate, how is it that that condo is $750,000? So what I see a lot of buyers doing is settling for an insuperior floor plan just to buy a newer condo, right? So instead of buying like, a 2008 or a 1996 condo that has, a 900 square foot floor plan with a good layout, they will go and buy a 730 square foot 2-bed, 2-bath just because it's brand new. But here's the thing. In 6 or 7 years, that condo is not going to be brand new anymore. It's going to be a very average aged condo with a bad floor plan. And today, most of the 2-beds that they're building are under 800 square feet. So as the years go on, your 900 square foot 2005 floor plan will be in lesser supply because they just don't build them like they used to. Now, buying an older condo isn't always the best if the strata is in a complete state of disarray. But sometimes you find one where the strata is ran well. The second mistake is buyers adamantly focus on the strata fee. Sometimes a high strata fee isn't bad and a low strata fee isn't good. It all comes down to how the stratas actually ran. So as an example, one of my buddies is selling his townhome. The strata fee is really high. It's like $550. But that's because they did a waterline repair and the strata elected to raise the strata fees for 2 or 3 years to pay back that amount that they had to pay to do the waterline repair, and then they're going to drop the strata fee back down. If a strata fee is too low, it can mean that they're underfunding the contingency reserve, which means eventually there's probably going to be a big repair that comes up that causes everybody in the building to get levied, and then the strata fees will go up substantially off of those lows anyways. Not always, but 9 out of 10 times, if I see that a building has a super low strata fee, you can bet that that strata fee is going to be a lot higher in the next 3 to 5 years. So when we're talking about condos, most commonly, depending on the size of the unit that you get, because strata fees are based on the unit entitlement, which is basically the size of the unit for, in layman's terms, anywhere from like $250 to $450 is a normal strata fee by today's standards here in the Fraser Valley. Now, a really high strata fee would signify that something is wrong with the strata. But again, don't just look at a $500 strata fee and be like, this unit is automatically bad because the strata fee is high. I would look through the strata documents and actually see what's going on with that building. Number 3, I don't want any wood frame. I only want concrete. Concrete does last longer than wood, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's better. And typically with concrete, it comes with higher maintenance fees because there's more mechanical. There's, thousands of windows along the sides of the buildings that need to be cleaned quarterly or every year or whatever it is. And a lot of the time, specifically for 2 bedrooms, they come with worse floor plans than what you would get in a wood frame building. However, concrete does typically come with better amenities. You'll get like a gym, a co-working space. They might have a golf simulator or theater room or all these kinds of things right within the building. And it does last longer. However, that doesn't mean that it's going to appreciate better, right? Because the long-term appreciation of that unit is going to be heavily reliant on how the strata is actually ran, right? There are concrete units in Surrey Central right now, let's just say 2008 build, that are 20% cheaper than the same age wood frame because the strata is completely dilapidated. They've misran it. They've misallocated funds things have broken down that weren't planned for, etc., etc. So just because you buy a concrete unit doesn't mean that you are going to automatically make more money on it. And typically, you're going to pay a higher price and more maintenance for that unit. Now, there's nothing wrong with buying concrete. There are plenty of good concrete buildings and concrete units out there. The point that I'm making here is that it's okay to buy wood frame. For the floor plan, next to location is the most important thing about your unit. So I would say by today's standards, you should be buying a 1-bed that is at least 500 square feet, a 2-bed that is at least 800 square feet, 750 at the lowest, but I would feel a lot better if you bought one that's at least 800 square feet, and keep it really simple, right? Buy a 1-bed or a 2-bed, right? I would stay away from 2-bed and den or 3-bed or any of these things unless you have to do that, right? Like there's a lot of people that are buying out of necessity. They need more space for their family, or they're getting kicked out of their rental, or they're leaving their parents and they need that space. But you want to be buying the units that have the biggest buyer pool, because you're going to have more liquidity when you go to resell that unit 5, 6, 7, 8 years in the future. And those units are going to be the very simple floor plans, the 1-beds, the 2-beds with a nice square layout that are super functional. No elbow floor plans, no jaggedy, rickety floor plans. You want a good exposure, you get some sunlight during the day most of the time. Maybe you can be north facing if there's like a mountain view or something there, but typically speaking, you want some sunlight and you want to be in a good end user location. And number 5, pay a premium for quality. Don't get too overly caught up on the price, right? It is worth it to pay more for the unit that you actually like, that's in the right location with the good floor plan in a well-run strata. Don't cheap out and try to save, $30,000 and buy the worst unit just to save that 30 grand. When I bought my first condo in 2017, that's exactly what I did. I bought the cheapest unit on the market, $275,000, no in-suite laundry, terrible location. The building was, very reactive on their maintenance, this, that, and the other. And luckily I managed to make money on it. However, if I had bought, if I spent the top of my budget, which was like $450, I would have made a whole lot more money on it. And I would have actually enjoyed living in the condo while I was there. If this is your first home and we're talking about 10, 20, 30 grand, in the big scheme of things, 6, 7, 8 years from now, you're not going to care that you paid an extra 20 grand for your condo. What you're going to care about is when you go to resell it, that it's easy to resell and you're getting top dollar for the unit that you bought. And that happens when you pay the extra dollar amount for the better unit, the higher quality unit. So I hope this helps. If you want to chat with me about buying or selling a condo in the Fraser Valley, link down in the description. Otherwise, just appreciate you for being here. I'm that Agent Kelly. I'm making moves to move you. Peace.